Okay,
Right.
you're being recorded. Ladies and gentlemen, meet Allison Herzig. Allison is now the coordinator of Advanced Manufacturing Initiatives for the South Bend Regional Chamber of Commerce. That is a lot of words. That's an impressive number of words.
No, because then they wanted to add and logistics, and I was like, I think we need a little less words.
So you used to work at NIPCO.
I did. Yep,
Yeah.
that was.
Feel your NIPCO connection.
Yeah, it was a while ago. When they had
And
a
you also worked for Frito-Lay as a
I
logistics analyst, and you worked for Bayer Healthcare. She's an author.
So I have,
You can search. She's got a lot of stuff published. I was like, how can post
humor, not always.
Well,
know,
yeah,
we call it adult humor.
My favorite article was the one that 37 ways not to be a, and we'll open the parentheses and put the word jerk in there.
I'm from New Jersey, so I moved out here 20 years ago, and I still have a New Jersey mentality, and everyone in the Midwest, you're all so nice. So a lot of my blog, it had a couple million followers, ended up being what I thought, but couldn't say. And so it had a lot of traction for a while. Then I had to grow up and be an adult and get a job again.
I was married to a woman from New Jersey.
Yeah.
For quite a while, and she used to tell me when she moved out here that people in the East are more sophisticated and people in the Midwest are not.
I don't believe that at all.
I always told her that she
That
was
is not
mistaking naive for nice and sophisticated for one of the 37 things.
Yeah. No.
So
Maybe she didn't live here long enough to make that statement. My family's still in New Jersey. I absolutely love the Midwest. I go home. I went home for Thanksgiving. I couldn't get out of there quick enough. It's just a whole different mentality. Everybody's really, really fast paced. And the best way I could describe it is I brought my daughter home a few years ago, and we were walking in a store, and the door like hit her in the face. She was 11. She's like, and I'm like, oh, honey, welcome to New Jersey. We don't open doors for each other here. You're used to the kindness of the Midwest. In New Jersey, they're just trying to rush into that store as quick as possible. They really don't think about who's behind it. But thank you, Kevin.
yeah, I also want to mention that you are on the advisory board of both campuses. And what that's good to know is that this is someone that has a real concern for what we do here and what we do for you and what we do for the community. So with that, I'm just going to let you roll.
Thank you. Well, I am well aware of I'm between you and probably Christmas break. So
No, we have one class.
Good. Okay. I do speak really fast, being an East Coaster. So if I'm just going too fast, pull me back. I'm also on the advisory board for Western Michigan for their industrial management logistics supply chain program. So you'll see a little plug for Western Michigan at the end of this. The way I organized, I have a typo, my presentation, supply chain disruption impact, should say on workforce development, is that I'm going to give you a macro look at the national trends, then I'm going to step into state trends and then into regional. And the reason being is to have that pathway to understand what's going on here, you need to understand what's going on a national scale and how we're promoting Indiana overall, because there's a big push in the state for logistics industries. So recently in November, IU Kelley School of Business put out their State of 2020 Economic Outlook. And how they do this is they have their economists from multiple campuses, 2 from each campus, go and they kind of meet together and come up with this based upon the regions that they're in. So some of the big takeaways that kind of impact logistics is you're going to see expansion extends into the 12th year, which we're all aware of. However, it is slowing down. And so along with that slowdown, you're going to see that business investment is another weak year of growth. It's still growing, but it's growing slowly. And part of that is due to just the overall uncertainty in the economic, in the global economy as well as the United States. So unemployment holding steady, inflation kind of works out with 2%, and the global growth projected at 3.4. It was going to be 3.5. They did lower that 0.1%. So overall, if you look at the economic growth globally, 2019 was 3%. In 2018, it was 3.6. In 2017, it was 3.8. So we're having a downward trend. And And that's going to impact things going on in supply chain. But what it's also helping is that things are evolving, and evolution is good. So other national trends we see, logistics costs increased 11.5%, 4.5%. Part of the reason is transportation costs increased. And some of the details on why transportation costs increased, you can see 2016 and 2017 are kind of flat with 7.5%. Why that was is in 2016, the coal market bottomed out. And so rail decreased 10% overall. And that had a huge impact. The other rates also stayed pretty flat. Parcel increased, and parcel's a huge part, and I think there's somebody in here that works for Amazon, that is increasing thanks to the Amazon effect, and we'll kind of talk about that. But then in 2018, we're going up. So part of why we're going up is the building of inventories. Again, that back to that uncertainty with the tariffs, and also because of the Amazon effect, we're having a lot more warehouses because of the short delivery requirements. And so that means more inventory in those warehouses. So inventory costs, you see, increased 14.8%. And again, administrative costs, which is good for us, is 6.4%. That's a lot of data, and it's not always the most exciting stuff. So why? Again, the Amazon effect. About 10 years ago, it was standard for customers, for big business to have 3 to 5 warehouses throughout the country. And they could deliver to their customers within a 3-day standard requirement. That was acceptable. That was how all of your big business set up their warehouses. Memphis, somewhere on the Northeast, and typically a California, Nevada kind of warehouse system. What's happening is we all like our package today. Tomorrow is the latest I want my package. And so as a result, you can't then feed off of a 3 to 5 warehouse system. Now you need to have a lot of warehouses spread out around the country. And it's not just Amazon who's doing it. Everyone's having to do it, because the reality is, even if I don't buy it from Amazon, I still want it tomorrow. So that's making a huge impact. The other issue is trucking fleets. So with this increased delivery is also the increased number of trucking needs. So a lot of private trucking fleets are going back into style, but it's for 3PLs. So I'm not sure if you guys have gotten to that point, but so the 3PLs are starting to increase their truck fleet size so that they have guaranteed delivery. The market is very tight. Trucking costs have gone up a lot, 14%. And so in order to ensure that customer service, which is a huge driver for all of logistics, that's your 7 R's, is all about the right product, right time, right place. That's your customer. So we go into the increased demand, which then we have drivers for the first time got to kind of dictate their wages going up, which for a long time, it was very stagnant. Their wages were not really moving, and now there's this huge demand, and thankfully, I have to say, having run a fleet, they weren't really being paid for the amount of work that they were putting in. A driver position, are you a driver, is not the easiest job. I think a lot of people think you just sit in a truck and you drive from point A to point B. There's a lot of involvement in that, and there's a lot of waiting, and there's a lot of frustration, and there's a lot of demand to get your stuff there, and I don't care what the regulations are. And so as a result, the drivers are finally getting the ability to say, I deserve more, and they're getting it, and that's good. I think that's good for everyone, because when you see a wage goes up, it rises us all up. And then,
one other thing too is that anybody who's ever, you've been in the store and you see people stocking the shelves. Who is that usually? Often enough, it's the supplier and the driver who are responsible for, don't want you, they don't want their employees stocking, putting bottled water on the shelves or whatever.
Yeah, your Pepsi, your Frito-Lay. When I worked for Frito-Lay, I designed their truck routes for the United States. So I traveled all around the country to their warehouses and DCs and worked with their drivers and their management to design their truck routes based upon volume and dollars per store. And they are responsible for, they call it merchandising, their product within the stores. So your Pepsi guy who's putting all that product out there. My dad was a beer salesman. He had to go put his beer out on the shelves. So a lot of times it's contracted out to the supplier to handle that, or sometimes the suppliers contract with other companies to handle that for them.
But to your point about the drivers, it becomes very physical.
It is.
Even if the product isn't heavy, like Pepsi cans or beer or whatever, even if the product's not heavy, a day of bending and stocking and carrying, it still takes its toll. So yeah, that's
and I loaded trucks. It's not for the faint of heart. And then technology is transforming supply chain. And I know a lot of times you're kind of concerned when you hear technology because people think their jobs are going to be gone. They're evolving. Jobs are becoming different from what they were 5 years ago and 10 years ago. And with that is necessary for, a little bit, there is a higher demand for information technology. Some of these more automated jobs, things that can be done, like in your warehouses, A-frame pickers and carousels that are repetitive movements that have a lot of injuries are now moving into the automation side. So workers can be used in a different environment. Also, there's a worker shortage. And so that is changing the fact of how we handle technology within the facilities. So with the Amazon effect, I talked real quick about it. When we go to smaller warehouses and more of them, you lose the economy of scale. So economy of scale in logistics is huge because bigger orders mean less warehouse or less transportation and less handling. You don't pick by eaches, and with that loss of economy of scale, that's driving up cost because now you're not shipping pallets and cases, you're shipping eaches. And so that means opening the case, tote picking, more palletizing, more wrapping and cartons. So that's all part of what's driving these logistics costs. So Indiana is positioning itself, rightfully so, as kind of a forefront for logistics in the United States, and also a lot of, because of location to these major arteries. Within 90 minutes from South Bend, you can access 3 million people. Within 5 hours, you can access 43 million people. Within 1 day, you get 120 million people. That includes Canada. And so that positions us to be very desirable to businesses. So Chicago being so close, Detroit being so close, you have the automotive industry just booming in Michigan. And here we have the RV industry. South Bend's a little bit more diverse with their manufacturing environment. But, FedEx has the second largest hub in Indianapolis. That's 3 away. I have gone to their hub in Memphis. It's phenomenal. I highly suggest if you ever have that opportunity to do it. The UPS is, within a couple hours, 5 hours from us as well. So we also have a lot of railroads. Elkhart has the second largest switching yard in the country. Nebraska is your first largest switching yard. And what that is where they consolidate and they combine the trains and they classify them. And so that's just another thing that, Indiana is going out to business, trying to promote. So we have great water access. We have the port of Burns, which I think is on the next slide. And, we have the air, we have Chicago right there. We have 14 interstates. And so when you think of Indiana, I remember being from New Jersey, I was kind of like, Indiana, I don't even know anything about it. When I told people I was moving here, they were like, what? And I'm like, yeah, I don't know. And now it's got a name, like it's got a purpose, it's on the market. It's 30% of manufacturing is this region. It is in the top of the country. And people are now recognizing that. And so there's a lot of opportunity here for jobs and growth and possibilities. So,
Before you get away from the rail too,
mhm.
are you really saying we should all be happy every time a freight train stops up?
No, because I pass by 2 to get my son to
Yeah.
school every day, and I call it like Russian roulette. Try to get in there on time, and it's not always successful. So, but you should, be kind of happy, maybe, if you see it in the rear view mirror when you pass it. That's when you're happy. And so this just kind of goes into all of the areas that regionally we can access within a very short drive. So the Port of Burns, you have 3 major ports there. You're 600 miles from the ocean. You have the Ohio-Mississippi River connection. You have 2 ports on Lake Michigan, which accesses up to in Canada. And so a lot of these things people don't realize as part of the logistics, cornucopia of this area. There's just so much here, and it's great that you guys are all doing supply chain, because there's just supply chain. I always describe to people, because they say, well, what is your degree and what do you do? And I said, okay, walk into a store. That entire store is supply chain. Nothing could get in there without a supply chain touching it. It is a great industry that will always be growing, evolving, but growing as the consumer continues to make demands to the market. Oh, okay. So about here, let's talk a little bit more about what's going on in this area for job trends. So out on the northwest of South Bend, Amazon is there. There's 13 businesses that have warehouses. A lot of them very large. CFDI is one of them. I think I have written down exactly. CFDI is an organization who does breaking down of the warehouse out there. It's 315,000 square feet. They refurbish and break down electronics at their facility. We have shares with Amazon. So there's your small warehouse sharing a space, which you're going to see more of. FedEx, Freight, and Ground each have their own facilities. Trying to think, AM General is out there. You have numerous trucking companies. There is a proposal to fix that horrible interchange of 31 in Cleveland, and it's a huge state argument because you can't have, off-ramps need to be X number of miles apart. And so it's kind of an argument about creating an off-ramp down where they want to create one, which would be a lot better for the trucking and the warehousing if it was like half a mile or 1 mile down. I think they need to be 3 or 5 miles apart. So also we have this big warehouse going up. I went and drove out there the other day to just kind of get a look of what's going on. In Nimitz Parkway, they're putting up, just this week, they were supposed to be putting the walls up, but they had not gotten that far. They were bringing in major deliveries while I drove by it for a large warehouse there as well. And then I was letting you guys know about the LIFT network funding. So this is a huge boost to our area. The Lilly Foundation has awarded a grant for the South Bend Elkhart region, and that includes Marshall County, to work on technologies for certain industries. And logistics is one of those industries. And so advanced manufacturing is a big thing. Of course, we have 30% of our area is advanced manufacturing, and rightfully so. But they're going to be looking at a lot of this supply chain coordination, how to make it better, how to make it more efficient, and how to continue to grow on what we have already. And so it's just another way that you kind of say Indiana has recognized this region for what its potential is in logistics and manufacturing, and how we're going around to try to position it globally, not just here. So here's some of the
Can
stuff.
I mention LIFT as well, is that we have a grant application in for Ivy Tech to develop more pathways from high school through our supply chain program as well. And we're asking for a pretty good chunk of that money there that you mentioned. So you all know, because I kept you up to date as we went through the EWIN grant process. Now it's implementation time, and that's what we're looking for, more of that grant money they can have. Go ahead.
And so this is just a visual of what I just spoke about, the warehouses. So right now, here is CTBI. They just opened. This one, the walls are up. This is 315,000 square feet. This one I think is 180. So this one is supposed to be, I think, a little bit bigger, maybe 385. So a lot. They're projecting 1.5 million additional square feet of warehousing space, 1 to 1.5 million in this Northwest region. That's huge, and that's a lot of jobs. And a lot of those jobs are from, as you all would expect and know, from your hourly positions up through, management and supervisory analyst positions, which is great, I think. Possibility to come in at an entry-level position and then move yourself up through. And a lot of operations managers have done that. You don't always need this 4-year degree to get moving into things. We often talk to, I go and speak to a lot of high school students, and I am constantly saying, you don't have to have your entire life mapped out at 18. You can start a job and then go back. A lot of these companies offer financial reimbursement and training and opportunities that way. So today you may be coming in, like I said, I was an intern loading trucks at Thrift Drug. So, that's what I did. I got $10 an hour. I was 20 years old, and it was huge money for me, and then moved up from there. So a lot of opportunity in warehousing. I think a lot of times it gets a bad rep. People look at warehousing and transportation and think that, you come in either as a material handler or something, and that's what you're going to be. And, if that's what you want to be, that's fantastic, because there's a lot of those jobs available. There's also other opportunities to move on.
Again, if I can chime in, one of the nice things is we were talking about strengths and weaknesses and so on for ID Tech. One of the strengths is that you can stack on credentials.
Yep.
So, we will get you through the CT here program in 7 courses in 2 semesters. And it's aggressive, but it gets you there. But if you want to keep going, you keep going. If you want to step back and say, good, that helped me. That helped me become a supervisor, a better supervisor, if I'm already a supervisor, maybe more promotable, cool. But then on top of that, now you decide you want to be a plant manager. You want to start getting on that pathway now that you've been in management for a little while. You come back, everything you've already done is in the bank for you, and you're just building on that to continue to get your associate's degree. And then if you want to continue on, I'll let Allison give the plug to Western Michigan later.
There's a lot of great programs actually in the Midwest. It's really fantastic. You have a lot within a very short distance. Purdue being a wonderful program, and in-state tuition, so that's always nice. So this is just some pictures of what I was just discussing. This is the building of the TBI building, and this is the proposed one that's going up over by Newman's Parkway. Or I'm sorry, the second building over in the Ameriplex Park. So again, this is your Newman's Parkway building that is in the process. It's still kind of that dirt area. It's getting a little bit better. And a big thing to know is, okay, they're building all these warehouses. Who's going to take them? That's great. We build it. Will they come? 80% of businesses that take warehouses buy or lease spec buildings. They come to the state of Indiana and they don't want to wait a year for their building to be built. They want to come in and set their operations up in a very short time. Because once a decision's made at a strategic level to start an operation in an area, the idea is to move as quickly as possible. The market has been identified. This is where we want to go. We don't want to wait for a year to work with architects and cities and zoning and all that stuff. 80% come to the state looking and find spec buildings. And so that's why these buildings are being built. And they're filling up as soon as they're done.
And on the other end, if they're closing up shop elsewhere, that's not a secret they're going to keep for a year.
Yeah.
So, people will start bailing on them pretty early on as soon as they know it's going to close down, unless they want to make the move. And so you need to get it over with quickly.
Yeah. pull that Band-Aid off fast. So again, just the NFI distribution center. So NFI is a 3PL company. I think somebody here worked for NFI or Bimbo Bakeries.
We are there.
Okay, so
We just last night.
did you? So I haven't seen the inside. A cohort from Work One is going to go over and speak to some individuals about doing the apprenticeship programs there. I'm very jealous and trying to get myself invited to that meeting, working on it. Because I kind of love to go to plants and warehouses. I'm that weird person that likes to go in and see what's going on. I find it fascinating. So I believe they're going to go over and speak about that because that's a Department of Labor program that is funded for the organization, and they get, you know, everybody likes to have some reimbursement for these programs because it costs money to do it. So the government's making a huge push. And when you think of apprenticeships, a lot of times you think of building trades, which of course is your traditional apprenticeship program. But there are many other different types of apprenticeships. There's 600 different kinds identified by the Department of Labor. And some of them, most of them are within a business area. You could do administrative, you can do all different types. You have logistics apprenticeships. And so there's a tiered pay, just like your standard building trades program. So, and that's going to be a huge push in the area, is to start working on these apprenticeship programs to kind of tap into the hundreds of millions of dollars that the federal government is offering for these programs to be established. I know Ivy Tech has, Isa I can't remember her last name, Johnson, is working on that for Ivy Tech, and Tom Primrose from Work One is doing it, and I've been tasked to do that as well for the chamber. So that'll be my new hat, along with logistics and construction trades, now it is manufacturing, and you know how it all goes. You get 5 jobs under one title. So the labor market. It's increasing 5%, which is always great. Projected logistics increase, and a lot of this is because of what I spoke about. You know, smaller warehouses, increased inventory, more trucking, and this is what's driving that growth, the 5%. So Indiana typically does have a lower rate national average for salary. We also have a much lower cost of living. And so when you look at that and you go, oh God, you know, 74,000 versus 66, the cost of living is what's making the difference there. And so 74,000 in New Jersey is really like not a lot of money, even though it sounds like a lot of money. 66,000 in Indiana is a livable family, you know, can survive on this wage. And so that is great. We're seeing a growth in that. And we have this last mile delivery market is what they're calling, you know, basically the Amazon effect, that one day I want it today. I actually wanted it an hour ago before I even knew I wanted it. Mm-hmm. So here's some of the things I kind of went and looked at. You know, I went into the Indiana Department of Labor and was like, all right, so what are our requirements? I should change the title from range. And how much are they? And so these are your standard logistics positions. The logistics analyst, your starting salary with a bachelor is $66,000 in Indiana, which goes to your national average. So, you know, you have, again, the operations management we talked about. A lot of that is experience. Warehouses want their ops managers and their supervisors to have experience. So a lot of times that supersedes the need for the 4-year degree. An associate's degree is always kind of tied into that ops management, not always, probably 70% of the time, but the experience is key. And I think over the course, you get very little respect coming into a place having never done the jobs that you're trying to manage. And so in order to understand the jobs you're going to be working with, you should have probably have done them at some point. And so that's where you're seeing this plus experience, but almost $100,000 for ops management. As we grow warehouses, we're going to grow the need for operations managers. We're going to grow the need for your logistics analysts, our transportation warehouse managers, again, associate bachelor's plus experience, transportation workers, so post-secondary certification, some college courses. Those could be your schedulers, dispatchers, individuals that they've identified that they want to, you know, you're a invested employee. They know that you want to work to a higher level. So you come in kind of at a receiving dock, shipping clerk, and you start to get some of those more analytical scheduling positions with it as well. That's your transportation worker. So I think that says a lot. You know, the average wage, I think, in the area, I'm trying to think of the number, was maybe 54,000 or 48 or something like that. So logistics growth. This is not a supply chain. I tried to get the supply chain overall numbers. I asked Spark 4 over at Work 1 on Wednesday and begged for Santa to deliver, but you know, nothing happens in one day. So unless you want your delivery. So I have just the growth for 2018 in logistics areas, which is still, I think, telling, and you can kind of put this extrapolated across both logistics and supply chain, because as logistics grows, supply chain grows. So, you know, Elkhart, 100%, not surprising, RV industry is booming. So St. Joe, almost a 40%, poor Marshall County, I don't know what's going on over there. General freight trucking, again, your trucking companies are typically headquartered or have hubs in St. Joe County, which is why you're seeing the growth in St. Joe County and the decrease in Elkhart County. Not to say there's not trucking going on in Elkhart County, it's just a shift of the locations. Top occupations in the area, again, this is logistics. I couldn't get that other area I was looking for on short notice, but first line supervisors, 20% growth across both St. Joe and Elkhart. And again, Marshall, what Marshall's not capturing is that they've had a couple big companies move in there. So this date is 2018. I think when we have it updated for 2019, for in the 2020, we'll see some growth in those numbers. I believe Pretzels Inc. put in a $75 million, oh, I don't believe I know, put in a $75 million expansion in Plymouth. So with that expansion, of course, is going to be the growth across. So you'll see Marshall County move. But we spoke again about, you know, here's some of your positions you can come in, you can currently be working maybe, and then you move up, you know, to first line supervisors if that's something you're interested in, but we see growth across all of them. Okay, I'm not sure. This was a Google slide that was made in PowerPoint, so clearly Google does not like me. But I went out to IU and went into their school of business to look and see, okay, what are their graduates getting? These are the 4-year bachelor's degrees. And here is where you're kind of seeing, you know, some of the bigger numbers, but I think, again, along with the numbers that we're seeing for the state of 66,000 as our national average. You're seeing consulting, supply chain, ops managers, purchasing, overall 63,000 range. These are your graduates. This is not somebody that's been doing it for 10 years. So your ops managers, they're getting 55 because they're just graduating. They're not serious 10-year employees that have worked there and have moved up to that higher number that we saw of almost, I think it was 90 was the number for that, or maybe it was 87. So that's pretty impressive. I know when I graduated college with a lot of debt, and I give you all kudos for not doing that, I was not making that in 1997. So, of course, college is exponentially more expensive these days. So here's my plug for Western Michigan. And I kind of put this in because Elkhart is very close to Western Michigan. They're out of Kalamazoo. It is a powerhouse for a supply chain program. They're well known around the country. They have what's called an industrial supply chain program. It is one of the only ones in the country. It is top rated. And what it is it's heavier on the engineering side. And so their graduates are doing very well. Almost 100% are placed in major organizations within the Kalamazoo area and Detroit area. They are heavy on transportation and the industrial engineering. Some of their big people are Stryker, GM, Case, Holland, Marathon. And so I really, if you're considering a 4-year program, if you live in Michigan like myself, I live on the state line, you can get in-state tuition, so there's an opportunity. Purdue, of course, has a fantastic transfer program, I believe, with your program for ID Tech. And they would probably be a little bit less money than the Western program. So it really, you know, but Western does give out a very nice financial aid packet. 50% of their 400 students currently in the industrial supply chain program are transfers from community colleges. So, and it's not the world's worst drive from this area. So that was another reason why I kind of put it in, because Purdue is not here. And so if you're looking to be here and say, take a couple night classes or something, Zach Williams is the one that's in charge of it. And like I said, I'm on their executive board for the program. So just some other opportunities and things to think about. You've got IU, Purdue, you've got quite a few in Ohio.
We have articulation agreements with Ball State as well, with Evansville, with UND.
The in-state tuition is going to be by far the best deal. So, you know, just another opportunity to throw out there. And like I said, I talk very fast, so here's my final summary of everything. You know, the transformation for the second revolution of convenience. So when I was reading, trying to put this together, it said, like, this kind of surprised me when I thought about it. It made sense. First revolution was in the 50s when butchers and your milkmen and all of them kind of came together into a supermarket. Now we're having this Amazon effect, and it's the next major revolution within supply chain. And so it's making a lot of changes in the, you know, the immediate commerce. Technology, I do have to say, analytics is something that is important in supply chain. Don't get worried. I am not a math person. Analytics means, can you do an Excel spreadsheet? Can you understand ratios, how to make percentages? You don't have to make complex, you know, algorithms. They have an IT department for that. You're not the IT department. But you do need to understand some cost-benefit ratios, some return on investment. It's all things that I think just kind of comes in hand after doing it for a little bit. And typically a lot of these companies have training programs and different things like that. So when I say analytics, don't go running. You don't have to be a math wizard or a statistician. And if you are, fantastic, because there's definitely a place within the analysis side of logistics, and they're really looking for that in other companies, and it just depends.
I've already scared them with the numbers. Look over your left shoulder, you can see the Deming quote. You got to trust all of this big data.
Big data is huge. It really is.
And it's one of the principles that that those who've had me for multiple classes sort of know I emphasize. The point being that as managers, we have to move the data in the right direction. We do that through people, which is what's underneath it, and pretty much everything else up in it. We do it through people, we do it by engaging, but you have to know your numbers. You may not be like you said, the statistician who's pulling it together, but just to give you an example of what I think they need to be, is I taught stats last spring. And in the course.
Not my favorite course. It was not my favorite course.
Well,
but you need it. You can't not have the statistics.
And it was not my favorite either, and yet I didn't have anybody else to teach it. But it had a comprehensive final exam. And I said, well, we're not doing that. What we did for the final exam was I found a case. It was a quality management case. Mm-hmm. And it was about those little, if you buy, I say a pound of coffee, but you can only buy it in 12-ounce bags now.
It's like the cereal box, it's just shrinking and shrinking. Next thing you know, it's going to just be one piece of cereal.
Plastic things that are part of the bag of coffee, that everybody know what I'm talking about? They're there to let gas escape as the beans sit for a long time. And if they don't work, then the bag kind of blows up until it's ready to explode. So this company had this as a quality issue, too many failures. So the case that I gave them was the description of what was going on, but also all the data they gathered and the solution. It ran about 12, 13 pages. And the final exam was explain this to your boss in a page and a half. So the point being, you have to know your numbers, but you have to know really what the numbers are telling you. you don't have to be a statistician, you just have to be able to read them, understand them, and know what you have to move so that when you start doing continuous improvement, you know if you're making any headway or not. And so that's, that's really, that's what I believe about the numbers. They're important.
Well, you can't get away from it because every company I've ever worked with and know of, they have what's called KPIs, key performance indicators. And you need to know your KPIs and you need to be able to speak to them, to your customers, and your customers could be within your own organization or external, because it's really just a big scorecard and everybody's compared against the same thing. So, I speak a lot about Bayer. I'm married to an individual that runs Bayer's logistics for North America. And so I hear a lot about it. We're a very exciting family. We try to name trucks as they come to us when we're on road trips. Kids love it. And we talk a lot about it because, Bayer's KPIs for Walmart are compared to Johnson & Johnson's KPIs. Like they're all the same. And so this is how they kind of put everybody on the same level. And it takes a lot of work to get on those preferred supplier lists. And it takes no work to get off that list. 1 or 2 errors, you are taken off the preferred supplier lists. And so that's what these companies, a lot of companies work towards, is these KPI, key performance indicators. It's very, very important. So talk a little bit about technology. ERP is your enterprise resource system. SAP is a huge system used in a lot of companies. It is, I don't know if anyone's heard of SAP here, or their companies use it. I know NIPCO uses it. It's a German software system. It can be very big or it can be very small. It's in modules, and so a lot of different ERP systems are modules or stackable. You could buy the HR system, you can buy the transportation system and the inventory system, or you could just buy the accounting system. And basically your whole enterprise feeds into this, and there's one master database of data. And so everything's using the same information. It is an expensive system, but most organizations who use supply chain as a competitive advantage, and they're a larger company, do use an SAP system. And so you might want to just go out and Google it and look at it. They have some training classes. If you're going to interview for a company and they say they have SAP on it, there's tutorials you can take, videos, just so you kind of have like a familiarity with it. All these companies are going to teach you how to use the system the way they use it. So it's not necessary to be, the SAP guru, but you do want to kind of know what some of these words are when you go in and look. Predictive analysis is really big. Big data is huge. South Bend has an organization called Analytics. What they do is they take just massive quantities of data from companies. Like Bayer was having a problem with deliveries. They basically dumped all of their data into Analytics, and then Analytics went out and farmed off of other databases within the World Wide Web, and some of it is proprietary databases, and they're able to extrapolate out solutions because this is massive quantities of data. And this is where some of your more data and analytical IT information comes from. So again, that's where your heavy IT individuals go. A lot of this is outsourced, or they have an IT department that's robust within a bigger organization that can do some of that as well. So blockchain is just kind of like being able to, I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with it, it's kind of like the new jargon, being able to see your order from beginning to end. It's huge in the global market. It's supposed to be, it's depending upon other organizations also using it, and so it's starting to grow a little bit. And then one of the things that we talk a lot about is your soft skills. One of, you're all adults, and so I'm sure you're all aware of that. I speak again to high school students a lot and have to reiterate the need to, show up for your interview and stuff. So I apologize for that being up here. This is a presentation I'm going to also be using for high school students as well, so I kind of did mix a few things in here. And then scout organizations, and this is something that I really, kind of implore you to do. So, say you want to be in inventory and you're not going to graduate for a year or whatever the case may be, but you really like these 3 companies because they're close to where you live. Start looking at what they're hiring. Start looking at the skills they need, because now you start to have experience before you go in. So again, if they have SAP, you go check out what SAP is. Don't have to be a guru in it, just know how to talk about it. You say, oh my gosh, they seem to be hiring a lot of level 1 analysts. What do those jobs mean? What are the requirements for those jobs? How can I start to get some of that skill set so that I'm ahead of the person that goes in and applies at the same time as me? And I think, it's just being aware of your market is basically what it comes down to. So what I kind of put together for you guys is I went out and I looked at, all right, so what are some of the jobs that are currently available in our area? And you can see a lot of it, associate degree or a bachelor's degree, a lot of it is experience, knowledge of warehouse and transportation, but this goes to knowing where your strengths are and where you need to work on. So even today, you're not going to go look for a new job, or maybe your organization is going to be hiring another job that you're like, I kind of want to know. I want to be in running for that. These are the things that you start to look at while you're still doing your studies, because you want to be able to position yourself. And who knows, maybe you can even apply because they say, oh, Bob's already, halfway through his associates, he's got 90% of what we need. He just doesn't have that last category. So it's good to be aware of what's going on. These are great jobs. They're all around the different areas, some from South Bend, some Plymouth. Benton Harbor Whirlpool is always hiring supply chain. I'm not sure for the drive. It's not the prettiest drive in the winter at 31, but if you're flexible.
Oh, it's a little white out here and there.
You're flexible and you have 4-wheel drive, you might be able to, look into that. But I'm not looking for a job, but I have job alerts on my LinkedIn page. I suggest you all have LinkedIn as well. And I'm just alerted what's going on because I need to be aware of it. I talk about job trends and employment trends, but also it helps you understand what's happening in the market. So you start to see, oh, okay, they're hiring a lot of warehouse supervisors. Why is that? They're hiring a lot of analysts at this company. Why is that? And now you start to develop a plan, an action plan for yourselves. So, this is just kind of a quick thing I do probably once a week. I go out and take 15 minutes looking at different logistics jobs in the area. So I spoke really fast and I spoke a lot. Does anyone have any questions? There's a lot of info.
Before you get a couple of questions, I'll just add a few things. We have talked a lot about blockchain in here, and in fact, if someone were better at managing class time, we would have talked about Walmart's blockchain initiatives today. We'll open with that next week, because the importance of it and how it's going to change.
Walmart is like, they're the leader of a lot. If you want to be successful, your product better be in Walmart.
Yeah,
and to get your product in Walmart, it's not the easiest thing.
I'm a Walmart seller, and that, and then a little bit of information for you too about their online markets, because they're making a run at Amazon.
They are.
Yep. In online. So these are all, I'm so delighted that you say the same things I say all the time. He
told me what he said before, so I just wanted to make sure I said the same thing.
Like you thought I was. But the point is that you want to be conversant in as much of this as you can. You don't have to be a blockchain expert. You don't have to be a data expert, but you need to be at least a little bit conversant in all of these things to be successful in your careers. And so, we try to give you a little bit of that exposure in class in addition to the materials in the textbook. And that's part of what we do. And the other thing is on the jobs, you can go to places like Indeed and all of the search engines, and you can give it a few specific parameters that you want to know, and they'll send you email.
I have Glassdoor and Indeed send me
well.
updates on what's going on and by title and region and all of that. So stuff.
And that helps me as an instructor for you because I see what they're after. And, you know, and then I can say, okay, I can bring that to the classroom.
Mm-hmm. You know, supply chain is one of those areas where if you major in accounting and you graduate, you're going to be an accountant. Like, that's it. You're not going to be, like, there's not a lot of diversity in accounting. You major in supply chain and you come out and you have so many different avenues you can take for a career or a job. And so I think, you know, it's one of the, I love talking about supply chain because, you know, for those of us that are kind of like ADD of employment at times, it's really cool to be in, you know, do something for a while, but, you know, with supply chain, you can, I started in distribution, inventory, wasn't the most exciting. I was a horrible cycle counter. You know, and so then I found transportation was kind of my gig and I really liked it, but it was really easy to make that transfer over from distribution to transportation. There was no, you know, huge impediment for me because I was in supply chain and it's this huge umbrella with all this stuff underneath it. And so, you know, I really am excited to talk to people about it because it's just such a growing industry with so much diversity. There's a job for everybody.
Quick show of hands, who's in purchasing? Who has been before? Yeah. Who was in shipping? Who does inventory? Who does, let's see, what am I missing? Operations, who's just, you know, ops, manufacturing. How many of you have logistics experience of some kind in the military? So it's a great group.
Yeah.
Because everybody brings it to class. And it's a lot of fun.
And you already understand it. I mean, going out to high school students and talking about the word logistics and supply chain, I'm kind of like, huh, what? You know, they understand what a teacher does. They understand what an engineer does. Just, so it's really great to talk to individuals that already kind of know what the words mean. Does anyone have any questions? Kevin has my information, and if you'd like to reach out to me, my job is to connect with businesses and individuals looking for employment to try to bridge you guys together, to bring you together. So, you know, if you are interested in certain things, I have contacts in a lot of businesses. I'd be, you know, if I have a contact with that business, I'd be more than happy to reach out to them. If I don't, I can make a contact with them because we know a lot of businesses, we know a lot of people. And you know, introduce you or find a way or keep, you know, in the back of my mind, oh, okay, you know, Susan is interested in this place. I'm going to go tour there in a couple of months. I'm going to pop her name out, talk to her about it. So by all means, reach out, send me an email, and let me know what you're looking for, what you're interested in.
Going once, going twice.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Appreciate you listening to me babble.
Oh, thank you so much. It was incredibly informative. And I would say then the only thing left to do is,
my quote, sorry. I was so proud of it. It had toilet paper in it. Again, I speak to high schoolers, so I was like, oh, they'll love it. And I knew a few of you were in the military, but I think it's pretty much when you go to war, you need both toilet paper and bullets at the right place at the right time. And that's logistics, I mean, basically. So from the beginning to the end, from the TP to the bullets. So.
Well, I'm not sure which one's the end there.
That's true, both are the end.
All right. I'll see you all next week.
Thank you. And Merry Christmas.
So,